let's just say he was not a particularly nice guy. He was the governor of Judea from 26 to 36 AD. That part of the country that is called Judea. He served under the Roman emperor whose name was Tiberius Caesar, not Caesar Augustus of the Christmas story, but Pontius Pilate served under Tiberius Caesar. That was his boss. That was his boss. And Pontius Pilate wanted to make sure he didn't lose his job because the Roman emperor had the power to take away Pilate's job if he did a bad job. But he was concerned about that, and Pontius Pilate was in full control of the military. He was in full control of the administration of Judea. He was in charge of that area of the country. He lived in Caesarea. That's where his home was. Some of you have been to Israel. You've been to Caesarea, like I have. And that's on the coast, the Mediterranean. Caesarea is right on the water. And that's where Pontius Pilate lived. He had a big home there, which is no longer there. But when he was the governor, that's where his residence was. A very, very fancy place. And he came to Jerusalem whenever there was something special going on, like a religious festival. He wanted to make sure nothing happened that was disorderly. Because Pontius Pilate was, as we would say today, a law and order guy. He wanted things to go smoothly. He didn't want any riots or any disturbances or any kind of civil disobedience. He wanted things to go smoothly. He was a law and order guy. That's what he was. And so he came to Jerusalem whenever there was something like a big thing going on, like a religious festival. Then he came to Jerusalem. He was a proud Roman who hated the Jews and made their lives miserable. He hated the Jews and made their lives miserable. When he became governor of Judea, one thing he did that didn't really go over very well with the Jewish people in Jerusalem was that he came marching into the city with a big image of the emperor. And he set it right in the middle of the city. That didn't impress the Jewish people very much because they feared God. They did not love the emperor. But here comes Pontius Pilate with this big picture of the Roman emperor and sets it right smack dab in the middle of the city. Another time he wanted to create a fresh water system in Jerusalem. And he wanted to pay for that water system by using the money that the Jewish people gave to the temple for religious purposes. Pilate wanted to take that money that they'd given for religion and use it to pay for his water project. And that created a disturbance also among the Jewish people in Jerusalem. They had a riot, and Pontius Pilate squelched the riot, and there was a lot of bloodshed. So he was a proud Roman who hated the Jews. He really hated them with a passion, and he made their lives very miserable. Well, so there was the Passover in Jerusalem, and Pilate came to this religious festival to make sure everything went smoothly. Law and order guy, you know, he's got to be there to make sure that the Passover did not get wild or crazy or result in a riot. So he came. That made him a little bit nervous. He could see this thing blowing up, and he might lose his job if he let things get out of control. So he came to the Passover, and then there was the trial. And the trial made him even more nervous, because during the trial, he had the opportunity to release a prisoner. And in the scripture reading, you heard about the choice. The choice was between Barabbas, who was a despicable character, who was a murderer, who was a thug, who was a lowlife, or Jesus. That was the choice. Pilate can make a choice. Who's going to be released? And he had examined Jesus, and he had found nothing wrong with him. Nothing wrong with him. And he asked the people, who do you want me to release? Which prisoner do you want me to release? And Pontius Pilate heard the people say, release Barabbas and crucify Jesus. That didn't make any sense to Pilate. He was not a religious person, but he knew that Jesus, as far as he was concerned, had done nothing wrong. But the people said, "Release Barabbas and crucify Jesus." And Pilate said in his mind, well, you know, that's what the people want. That's what the crowd wants. I'll go with the people. So what did he do? He washed his hands. We heard that description in the scripture. He washed his hands and he said to the crowd, okay, I'm done with him. I'll release Barabbas and I will sentence Jesus to death. And that's what he did. That's what he did. He sentenced Jesus to crucifixion because he was afraid that if he didn't, the whole thing might blow up. And the crowd might get angry and he might lose his job. Because the word to get back to Rome that he allowed a disturbance to occur.